I attended my very first convention for free, so let's talk about that. If you're new here, hi, I am Navya. This is my fangirl diary, and I talk all about my fangirl adventures here. Today, we're talking about Purgatory, which is a fully supernatural convention experience in Germany. And what I mean by that is, like, unlike a Comic Con or a Fan Expo, this is just only supernatural. So, the people that you're going to meet here, the community that you'll find, is typically the supernatural fandom, which is what is so exciting about attending conventions like these. In Europe specifically, there are only 3 fully supernatural conventions. So unlike Creation in US and Canada, where you have like multiple creation events throughout the year, in Europe you just have Purgatory Halloween, of course, Justin Bello in Italy, and Crossroads in Birmingham. So if you want to attend a supernatural convention, which is just completely supernatural, these are the 3 that you need to keep in mind. And they typically happen between April and May. So I think Justin Bello and Crossroads happen in April, and Purgatory typically happens in May, with the exception of Purgatory Halloween, which happens around Halloween. So I went to Purgatory, and I actually went to Purgatory for free. Well, not technically, but in the spirit of it. So many of you may know that there was another convention, a supernatural convention that was being organized at some point last year. It was supposed to happen in December. It was called Nether Angels, but there was a lot of stuff around it. I've done multiple videos talking about Nether Angels. I don't want to spend any more time in this video talking about Nether Angels. But essentially the convention didn't happen, and a lot of people, a lot of attendees, potential attendees, lost money. I was one of them. And in these communities around Nether Angels, some people were really nice about it. And so someone I knew happened to have an extra ticket that they wanted to just give away to someone who hadn't been to a convention ever and also lost money during Nether Angels. And my name came up in the process. I put my hat in the ring, and this person very generously was willing to give me their ticket for free, which of course I could not accept. So I did pay them for their ticket, but in the spirit of it, I got to attend a convention for free, technically. So let's talk about Purgatory. I got a standard ticket, but there are loads of different tickets because there are 2,500 people, so there are 2,500 tickets that are sold each year or to each like convention, and there's loads of different tickets. So you have your VIP tickets, you have your gold and silver tickets, and then you have your premium tickets. The differences between these tickets are usually, like, VIP tickets will give you this all access experience. You'll of course have to buy some extras as in when you want them, but typically it covers autographs and most of like the general photographs. Then you have your gold and silver tickets. These are lower than the VIP tickets because the VIP tickets are rather limited. Also with the VIP tickets, in the panel room, you're like right at the front, so you're right next to the stage. That's where your seat's gonna be. So if you are planning on attending a lot of panels and you want like good pictures, good photographs, that's a ticket worth considering. Gold and silver is similar. You're like to the front of the room, relatively speaking, and it includes a bunch of stuff. Typically it includes autographs, might or might not include photographs depending on like who the guests are and like which ones are included, but it gives you a lot of stuff. Then you have your premium tickets. Premium tickets are basically everything exclusive except the fact that you're slightly at the front of the room because you're right behind silver. So if accessibility is an issue for you, if you want to be seated ahead in the conference room, in the panel room, that's where you want to be. So you just want a bit of a jump start. That's what premium ticket gets you, and it also gets you a bit forward in like queues for like photographs and autographs and all these other things. And I'm going to talk about the queues in a minute because that's also a whole thing that we need to jump into. But this is basically the ticketing structure. And I think Purgatory has a very simple ticketing structure relative to other conventions, because in Purgatory, it basically works like it would at like a creation convention or one of the other like Comic Cons and things like that, which is basically you get an entry ticket and then you add your extras to it. So what were my tickets? I got a standard ticket. I think if I remember correctly, it was like section 4, because as I said, I got it secondhand, so I got it from someone who had bought it before. And the secondhand market of Purgatory is very active, so you can get a lot of secondhand tickets and you can get a lot of extras and things like that, also secondhand, because people are constantly selling stuff, because people buy things way in advance when they open up, and then they know that if they can't make it, they can always sell it. So this is pretty common. The caveat of that is there's also a lot of scamming, and a lot of big scamming. So for instance, with this particular Purgatory, which is Purgatory 10 that just happened, one of the bigger scams that was going on was that somebody had sold a silver ticket to multiple people. So basically, if you're buying a ticket off of Eventbrite, and if you're the first reseller, so if I buy a ticket and I want to resell it to somebody else, I can transfer the ticket to them. But if they then want to sell it to somebody else, because they can't make it, then they just have to like send a PDF copy, or basically just send the ticket to them. And in principle, you can send this to multiple people, right? Because it's just a PDF. It can be circulated as many times as you want to circulate it. So what that leads to is this scam where people sell one ticket to multiple people, which is what happened at this particular Purgatory, where a silver ticket was being sold to 10, 15 people. So I wasn't really planning on overloading my convention experience because it was my first convention experience, but there were some pictures that I definitely wanted to take and some experiences that I definitely wanted to have, and so I just focused on those and tried to like keep it light and keep it simple. So I had a picture with Jensen and Jared together, I had a picture with Ruth, and I had a picture with Misha, all of which were great experiences, and I'll get to those in a minute. But other than that, I had the witching hour with Ruth, which is, I believe, a trickle down from creation, and I had a drinks event with Misha, both of which were also pretty amazing. Nothing to complain about. I'm not gonna go into like the story time of it all and telling you like how each of these events went, because I think that there's a subjective experience that everybody has, which you might have a different experience than I do, and I don't really want to go too much into it. But I will say, generally, I had a good experience at my pictures and at my extras that I got. I also got the VIP panel as an extra, because if you had the VIP ticket, you get the VIP panel. But I got the VIP panel with Jensen and Jared as an extra because I just wanted to experience that. So coming to the actual like organizational experience of it all. So when you're going for photos or what, the events like the meet and greets or the witching hour and things like that, those are relatively chiller because there aren't a lot of people for that. You don't have to like queue up and things like that because it's a limited set. But if you're, for instance, going for a photograph, right, you are going to spend a lot of time waiting in queue. I mean, the entire experience is basically, I spent 90% of my time queuing up for something or the other. Registration itself took me like an hour or two. And then after registration, I headed to get tickets for karaoke, which is not an add-on that I planned before, but then I realized that I wanted to do it. I kind of feel like with karaoke, specifically at Purgatory, because I've heard such good things in like creation conventions about people's experiences at karaoke, but at Purgatory specifically, I think karaoke is just okay. It can be a fun time if you have like a fun group, but it's up to you to like make of it what you will. I was really tired. It was on Saturday. I was dying, and I did not want to spend any more time being on my feet. I just wanted to go and sleep in my bed. It did start late, which was also a bit annoying because, as I said, I was exhausted. So I didn't stay too long at karaoke, but yeah, as far as my experience goes, it is what you make of it. But coming back to the actual organizational of it all. So you spend a lot of time waiting in queues. As I said, I spent 2 hours at registration and then probably another hour waiting to get tickets for karaoke on the first day, which was Friday. So not technically the first day, but the pre-first day, I guess. And then you basically spend all of your con time also waiting in lines, because you're waiting in lines for pictures, you're waiting in lines for autographs, and that's about it. That's the whole deal. And depending on like what ticket you have, if you have a standard, for instance, you're probably gonna be like way in the back. So yeah, you're gonna have to wait out like VIP, gold, silver, premium. You're gonna have to wait out all of these people before they get to you. So a lot of time is spent waiting in queues. So be prepared for that if you haven't been to a convention yet. But beyond that, also your actual sort of interaction time is like a few seconds. Like you really have to be prepared. It's kind of like an assembly line. You go in, take your picture, get your autograph. I guess you get a little bit more time for autographs. I didn't get any autographs because I didn't really have anything personally that I wanted to get autographed at this stage. I might do them later, I might not, but at this point I was like, I don't really have anything, so I don't want to go get an autograph. But I like the idea of autographs because you get more of a space to actually interact with them, which would be nice, except I don't want to get an autograph or anything, so that kind of like sucks. So yeah, you're just kind of like a cog in a machine at that point. You have to be prepared, you have to be efficient, because there's a lot of people behind you and there's a lot of people ahead of you. But Purgatory can also do things better. First off, there is so much wrong with the organization. So you're not allowed to take photos or videos, not with, from what I understand, not with professional cameras, because otherwise I would have taken my professional camera instead of my dinky old phone. But I didn't want to get banned. Like, hey, if I'm going to get banned for anything, it's going to be for calling them out on their poor organizational skills and not for, like, not following their rules. Because they said no videos, but everyone took videos. Like, if you go online and look for Purgatory 10 videos, I am certain that you will find them. I personally did not take any videos during panels because those were the rules, and I'm happy to follow the rules, but I just feel like there needs to be a better enforcement of the rules. So yeah, that was one of my biggest sort of quips with Purgatory, because I don't mind if everyone's on the same page and everyone's taking pictures and everyone can bring in their professional cameras and whatever, like, and do things their way, because I'd love to do things my way. I'd love to take pictures from my camera instead of, pixelated pictures from my phone. That would be phenomenal. But I didn't do that because I was following the rules. So Purgatory, either, or at least entertainment events, either figure out what your rules are and get everyone to follow them and enforce them, or just don't have rules. But, like, pick a lane and stick with it. Because I understand that you can't enforce all of this stuff because there's like 2,500 people and you can't monitor everyone in the panel room. I understand that. But then stop having these rules. Because right now, the people who are being penalized are the people who are following the rules, not the people who are breaking the rules. And that seems wrong to me. And then one of my other big sort of concerns with Purgatory was that everything was in German. Like, you had your panel room where they had, like, the announcements kind of flowing on the ticker tape below, which was great. Those were in English. But around the place, people were just shouting instructions in German, and it was absolutely chaotic. And when you're in a hallway that's crowded with like 100 other people, and there's only like one staff member yelling out instructions in German to a largely international audience, that's not okay. You can do it in both. That's an option that you have. You don't have to do it just in German. I am just saying that the organization could use some work. And don't get me started on accessibility. I feel like we all think of accessibility as a nice to have but not a need to have. But let me tell you, y'all are so wrong about that. We are so wrong about that. Because I went for the drinks event with Misha, and the idea was basically there were all these high tables, which also not everybody used the high tables, because I thought the idea would be that Misha would get to spend some time at each of these high tables, and that would include all the people who were there. So, you could have like, it's a 60-minute event, or like it's a 90-minute event, actually, not even a 60-minute event. It's a 90-minute event with 60 people, so you have like, I don't know, like 10 high tables that he can then spend about 10 minutes on. And that would be fine. But there were so many sort of like mini groups around the hall, because there weren't nearly enough tables, and the tables weren't nearly big enough for like 6 people, or, more than 6 people. So that by the time he circled around to our table, there was barely any time left. Which is, again, from an organizational standpoint, you can make this better. Like, this is an option that you actually have. But also on accessibility, there were all these high tables, but none of these high tables are accessible to like wheelchair users or mobility impaired users, or basically anybody who is not in the physically healthy boundaries. Why? I don't understand why. We had someone in our group who was using who had like a mobility scooter, and we had to ask for a special table to be put in, which is, you could do that already. You could like have something on standby in case someone is, limited in their physical movements. Generally speaking, I was not very happy with the organization. I'm just gonna put that out there. I think other than that, it was a great experience, because anything that involved the cast, they did like a phenomenal job. They were great through and through. They were professionals. The panels were fun. Here's my comment. Here's my comment on the panels. So I am a big believer in I'm a big believer in self-censorship. I don't believe in censorship, but I'm a big believer in self-censorship. And I feel like if you're going to go and ask a question at a panel, I know it's hard. I know it's like one of the hardest things you have to do, to stand up in front of a room of 2,500 people and ask your favorite celebrity a question. It's a difficult and daunting task. And that, what I'm about to say, does not take away from that. But if you're going to stand up in front of a room and ask a question, at least think about whether it's an entertaining question. Because, yeah, or it's a meaningful question, whatever, but have some like value add with your question, right? Like, don't just ask a question because you want to go up there and ask a question, even though it's a hard task. So I think everyone should like think about their questions a couple of times. And I don't know if this is the case everywhere else, but at least at Purgatory, Think about your question a couple of times. Think about what's an interesting way to frame your question, and then ask your question. Don't just ask any old question. That's just some food for thought for everyone going to Purgatory. Moving on to the actual community of it all, because I feel like now that we've talked about like people asking questions, we gotta actually talk about the people. I mean, there's loads of factions of people. So you have your attendees who are your one and doneers, as I've said before. They want to attend the convention once and they want to be done with it. They want to take their pictures, get their autographs, and that's all. Then you have your actual people who love the source material, and I am one of them. I really like the source material, and the cast is, for me, an embodiment of that source material. I really like the show really connected with me, the characters really connected with me, and the cast is just the physical form of that in space, you know? So I'm very happy to have like conversations with them about their other projects and stuff like that, but I would like to connect with people who connect with the source material just as much as I do. That's a fun thing for me, to have these intellectual conversations, to be stimulated and to like hear other people's thoughts and ideas in a respectful manner. There's a faction of people who are like that, who do attend conventions. And then you have your final faction of people, the starstruck. The starstruck are people who are just so blinded by the bling of celebrity that they cannot think or talk about anything else. And I'm a people observer, so I did observe all of these factions out in the wild while I was waiting in my queues and while I was like talking to people. So it was a very interesting experience to see these different groups of people out in the wild. And now this doesn't encompass everybody. You might be a blend between two of these factions. You might be a blend between all of these factions. But typically, this is how the split goes. So final thoughts. What was my experience like? I think it was great. I had a really good time. I met a lot of really amazing, phenomenal people. I saw some great art. The stuff that's handed out at conventions, like, you don't even need the vendor's room. Just go and stand in any old queue and someone will come up to you and give you something or the other. I would love to do a Purgatory again. I might do it differently. I might focus on different elements of it, but I am definitely interested in doing it again. That's my final thought on this. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this mini recap of Purgatory. I had a great time at this convention. I had a great time interacting with the fandom, and I hope to do more of it. I hope to see more of you in the wild. And until next time, thank you for liking, commenting, and clicking that bell.